Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Kelsey. I am a 6th year homeschooling mom to 3 children ages 10, 6, and 1. And I want to share my 6-week homeschool update with you guys. So I decided that I would make this video into 2 parts. When I was writing down my notes for this, there's just a lot that I want to say. There's a lot that we are changing, and so this first video is going to specifically address Heart of Dakota. I think a lot of you were curious about Heart of Dakota, as I was. You're not super familiar with it, and so I wanted to share what we're liking, what we're not liking, what we're changing, what we're swapping, all of that fun stuff. And then next week I will have my video where I kind of go over my 5th grader and my 1st grader and how those subjects are going, because we had a couple new things this year, like IEW, structure and style, and things like that I think a lot of you were curious about. So let's just jump into it. I've got like 30 books around me. I know you guys can't see that, but I have like 30 books around me, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. I would love to tell you that Heart of Dakota is going spectacularly and we love it so much exactly as is, but that is not real life. And so we do Sabbath schooling, which means we do 6 weeks on, 1 week off. And so 6 weeks is really my time to evaluate. And I said to myself, you are going to do this program for 6 weeks no matter what. You are going to give it a fair shake. I've had a situation in the past where we will use a curriculum for a few weeks, and if it's not working, I'm just ready to throw it out and move on because I just don't want to deal with it anymore. And so I am not really in a place right now where that is an option financially, like mental capacity, anything like that. I don't know if I've shared on my channel, but we're actually expecting baby number 4 in December. So that is why I kind of chose some curriculums that are a little bit more check the boxes and just kind of tell me what to do and when to do it. And so I'm kind of starting to see why I originally moved away from a curriculum like this. It's not very flexible, but I'm going to make it flexible and make it work. So let's do it. First of all, Heart of Dakota in and of itself, I think is a great program. I think it is a little bit more of a rigorous program than I realized. If you have not seen my other videos, I have a 5th grader who has ADHD and some learning challenges, and then I have a 1st grader who's just kind of along for the ride. And I chose the Heart of Dakota, Bigger Hearts for His Glory. It is designed for more like a 2nd or 3rd grade curriculum with extensions for 4th and 5th graders. And you guys were so encouraging in my other videos that even if we did not do the extensions for my 5th grader, that he would still be getting a deep and rich curriculum exactly as it was without the extensions. And you guys were right, and that was very encouraging for me and really took a lot of weight off of my shoulders. And honestly, the extensions is one of the first things that we removed, but I'll get to that in a minute. So we are not necessarily loving the history, which surprised me. I thought that was the thing that we would actually like the most, and it's the thing that we have actually liked the least. So for the first part, you are using this book. It is a first book in American history by Edward Eggleston. Honestly, my kids were just not into this at all. I was kind of into it, and my husband had overheard a couple of lessons and he liked it, but my kids just weren't. And I think a little bit of it has to do with the people that we were learning about. We talk about Christopher Columbus and John Smith, and they just were not into the early explorers at all. And you know, this is a book that's like, I think it's over 100 years old. And so some of the information in it, I was a little bit leery about, which I had also kind of talked about in my other video that I was worried may be an issue. So this book was just not working very well, just being honest. This is another one that you use, Stories of Great Americans for Little Americans, and my kids actually enjoy this book much more. So that's kind of with that as far as the resources go. For science, the first book that you do is One Small Square Seashore, and then you do Science in Colonial America. And my kids, this one was kind of, I mean, I liked the pictures, and I mean, this kept their attention a little bit better than the history did, but in general, they were not huge fans of this book. Again, they liked the pictures and things like that. My kids really enjoyed the experiment aspect. They liked having an experiment every week, but they didn't love it. This one we didn't actually get into, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I kind of made some changes around week 3 or 4 to kind of help us get through it, but they just weren't super in. I just didn't think they'd be super into this one either. So I'll talk about what we changed here in a second. So there are some things that we absolutely love about this curriculum that we are going to continue to use. And I actually picked up this book before I decided to use Heart of Dakota. When I was looking into Heart of Dakota originally, I had seen this book and looked into it, and I really liked it. This is basically a book of hymns that kind of tell you, like, not obviously you have the hymn itself and the sheet music, but you also have the story behind the hymn. And so at the beginning of the month, we get our new hymn, we read the story about it, and then we spend the month learning the hymn. So for us, that kind of looks like we read the story and then we listen to the hymn. We try to do it every night before bed. We listen to it when we're in the car. And so I kind of have a playlist with all of the hymns, and we are just slowly learning and listening to the hymns. The other thing that I absolutely love is the devotional book. So you do this once a week. I believe for this level, it's Little Pillows, and then I think Morning Bells was maybe for their level just below this one. I got this on eBay, so it had both. But I really love this devotional. I feel like a lot of children's devotionals now are so watered down, and this one is so deep and rich in theology. I just really love it. So this one definitely is probably, of all the resources that they include, is my favorite thing in this curriculum so far. And my kids, you know, it is in a little bit of Old English, so my kids are a little bit like, what? But so if you read King James Version, your kids may not even notice, but we usually read it ESV, so they're a little bit confused sometimes, but I think that's good for them to read a little bit of that Old English type stuff. And then you're also getting into the Bible every day, so you're learning a verse every week, and I really love the questions. There's not a ton of questions. You're not sitting and doing like a 15 or 20-minute Bible lesson, but you're reading scripture, and then you're asking thoughtful questions, and you're also learning a new character trait every week. The character trait actually goes along with what you're learning in history that week, and I've actually liked a lot of the things where they're talking about that some of these people in history had really good character traits and others did not have such great character traits, and that caused a lot of issues and problems, and so I really appreciate that aspect of it. So I have to be honest, we have not even gotten to the poetry, which makes me a little bit sad. I was thinking that this would be, because we were incorporating poetry in our morning basket last year, we've kind of gotten away from a morning basket. I'd say some of this falls into a morning basket category that we're kind of doing around lunchtime, but we just have not gotten to the poetry. That's something I want to work on for sure in the next 6 weeks. The other thing that we kind of did was we really liked several of the read alouds that we've done. The thing is that it has you doing the read alouds by category instead of by like where you're at in history. So instead of doing certain read alouds during certain time periods, you're kind of just sticking to like a biography or a fantasy or whatever book category it's in. And so we read our George Rogers Clark book. That was the very first read aloud that we did. My kids really liked that one. I actually substituted a read aloud. My son had this in the extension package, and I decided to read this book for our read aloud, and then he actually did Sign of the Beaver, which he really loved, and we watched the movie and he enjoyed reading that book and kind of comparing and contrasting the book and the movie, which he's always funny when he does that. He's just so black and white of a thinker, and he's just like, that's not. And I'm like, yeah, you got to get used to that, buddy. Never as good as the books. But my kids actually really loved this book. They were like, another chapter. So that always makes me feel good when they are really thoroughly enjoying our read alouds. And so I think that's something I'm going to talk about in a minute as well, is a little bit of our change with that. But I think we're going to continue a lot of the suggested reading books, but instead of my son reading them, I'm going to do them for our read alouds. So as I said, you guys really encouraged me that the extension package would be fine if we did not do that. I did want to continue doing the independent readers. So this is currently the book my son is on, Ben and Me, An Astonishing Life of Benjamin Franklin by his good mouse Amos. And so he is currently reading this one, like I said. He also read Sign of the Beaver, and he read Pedro's Journal. He did not love Pedro's Journal. He did love Sign of the Beaver, and so far he is really liking Ben and Me. All right, so let's talk about what we changed in those first few weeks. So like I said, I was determined that we were going to do this curriculum for 6 weeks no matter what, but I did want to move things around and make it a little bit more flexible for us. So the first week I wanted to do exactly as it was written to see what worked and what did not work. And right away, the extension package I knew I was going to get rid of. He did the history for the first few days, and then I don't know, I just felt like we were already talking about it together as a group. He was reading Pedro's Journal, and so I just felt like that was enough. The other thing that I did was we swapped the schedule, which I think I talked to you guys a little bit about, was that I was worried about the schedule. And I think for my children in particular, transitions are difficult. So this is a Charlotte Mason style, which means you are getting like a feast, but you are doing small chunks. And so what would happen is we would sit down to do our history reading, and by the time we would get sat down and settled and ready to listen, we would pretty much be done reading and moving to the next thing. And so then I would have to set up the history activity, and by the time we got into that and got that done, we were already moving into the next thing. And so I just noticed my kids were having a really hard time sitting and focusing and doing what we needed to do, even for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, because in between transitioning to the different things, they were just kind of like wanting to go do their own thing. And so I kind of switched it back to a couple different ways. So for one, we do social studies on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays now. So you're literally only reading like 2 or 3 pages a day. And so it's really not anything crazy to combine 2 days at a time and read 6 or 7 pages. And so that's kind of what we've been doing. And then we will do the activities, so the notebooking, timeline, geography, history activities, all of that, we moved to Fridays. So we pretty much just do reading and narration of social studies on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then we do the enrichment activities and all of that on Fridays. I have to be honest, we've definitely focused on our notebooking and our timeline, but as far as the other activities go, we kind of pick and choose which ones we want. So one week we might do art, the next week we might do geography, and so on and so forth. When it comes to science, we're doing that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Tuesdays we are reading and notebooking, and Thursdays we are reading and doing an experiment. Now, they technically have it set up where you have one experiment where you like go through with the scientific method and all of that, and then you have like more of a science exploration day where you're just kind of doing like a hands-on science activity. So we just pick one of those to do a week, and we will do, one week we might do the scientific theory, one week we might just do the activity. So my kids have really been enjoying that. They're very simple to do, they really enjoy them. And so that has been working for that. Now, as far as for the next 6 weeks, like I said, you are primarily using this book for your history. You are incorporating this book and also this book, which my kids actually really enjoy and I actually really enjoy. It's pretty easy read and it's got bright, colorful pictures. And so they actually don't mind sitting down and reading this one, but they are just not loving that one. And so I wouldn't be me if I didn't go in and swap curriculum around. But I went through the entire Heart of Dakota, weeks, and chose people or topics that I thought my children would be the most interested in, or that I wanted them to learn the most, or maybe ones that we had not covered yet. So we actually did American history last year as well. I'm going to incorporate some simple studies, which if you have not heard of Simple Studies America, I did a video of it right here where I did a flip through and kind of a look into that. And so I'm just going to use what I have, and honestly I think Simple Studies paired with this will go together quite nicely. And I really love her book suggestions as well, and so we are going to get a couple of books from the library every week. I've been bringing home a couple of books from the library to kind of, I don't know, spice up our lessons a little bit, I guess you could say. My kids really enjoy using picture books in our history and science lessons, so I've kind of started incorporating those a little bit more, kind of closer to how we did last year, but without me having to sit down and create whole unit studies and everything like that. There's that. The other thing about Simple Studies that I like, that I think is going to flow with this really well, is that you focus on notebooking and timeline, and maybe add in an activity or geography or things like that here and there. So that is something that we're going to do as well. So I went through Heart of Dakota and picked out the history topics or people that we want to talk about. I went through Simple Studies and picked some of those out as well. And then I actually added a couple. So we're going to do more like a unit style type, and we're going to do the Titanic because I was obsessed with the Titanic as a child, and my kids have showed no interest in learning about it, so I'm just going to make them. And just a couple other things that they might be interested in doing as well. So as far as swapping the science, like I said, we did not end up doing the colonial America science. What we have been doing is incorporating a little bit of nature's anatomy. So this, I'm sure as a homeschooler, you've seen this book everywhere. But there are actually some topics that we have not covered at all in our homeschool in the past several years. So we just did the layers of the earth. First grader did a kind of label and color sheet, and then my fifth grader did one where he cut them out and put information in them and then put them together, kind of like a little flip book. And I got both of those resources from 123 Homeschool for Me, so they really enjoyed that. And then we watched a couple of videos, and we did like a layers of the earth Play-Doh, so they enjoyed that. We're also going to be, this week we're going to be doing landforms, and so we're going to go through the different landforms. And I actually have a couple resources from Teachers Pay Teachers that I had bought last year, the year before, that I had planned to do over the next couple of years. And we're gonna do like a landform salt map, I think is what it is. I don't know, I'll link it below so you guys can know what I'm talking about. But so I'm excited to do that. Once we kind of get past a couple of those weeks where the colonial science was supposed to be, we are going to just go in and do the One Small Square woods. So I think my kids will be a little bit more interested in the woods than they were the seashore. If not, I'll probably just pull this and do a couple more weeks of nature anatomy until we jump into Pioneer Sampler. Pioneer Sampler takes up a huge portion of the year, and so I think this will be good for that. Hopefully they like this one. A lot of people said that this is their favorite thing that they did all year, so I'm thinking this will be good. If not, I may just have to. I'm going to kind of reevaluate every 6 weeks, but this is kind of my plan for right now. And then we are going to go ahead and do John Audubon as well. That is kind of what we have planned for science. We're also going to use some resource books and things like that. My first grader has not been super into the science at all, except for the experiments. So I've just been bringing home like some different resource books and things like that on topics that he's interested in. Here's one of the resource books that I was kind of referring to. This is going to go with we are going to be doing a rock unit in nature anatomy, and so I grabbed this book that we're going to add in as well. And these are the type of books that my kids really love to incorporate for science. And we also have Meadow Creatures by Simple Studies, which we have not even used at all, and we did not get to our butterfly unit and grow our butterflies and our caterpillars and all that because I was in the heat of morning sickness. So I think that's what we're going to finish the year up with. So that's kind of my plan going forward for the next year. with social studies and science. We are going to mainly, like 95% of the time, use the Bible that is in the Heart of Dakota. But if I feel like we need to switch it up or do something else, I pulled a couple of resources that we have: 101 Bible favorite stories for the Bible, and this 31 days of prayer journal from Daily Grace Co. So these are just like little prompts. You read scripture, you pray for certain things, and then you kind of talk about, like, there's different prompts like draw a missionary family, sharing the gospel, and things like that. So if I feel like we need to switch things up a little bit, I will be bringing that in. I'm also going to be swapping around the read alouds. So like I said, I felt like some of the books that my son was supposed to be doing would work better as group read alouds, and some of the books that we were supposed to be doing as read alouds I think would work better for him for his independent reading. So we are currently, our current read aloud is Tolliver's Secret, and I think this is one that he was supposed to do independently. So like I said, my kids have really been enjoying this book, and his independent reading right is Ben and Me. I think it'll be fun too, because now I can incorporate some of the books that we've had for a while, like Bound for Oregon, when we're doing Westward Expansion. This is one that's very highly recommended that I got at the thrift store a couple of years ago, so I'm excited to be able to incorporate this. I also, based on the recommendation from Simple Studies America, Abigail Adams' Girl of Colonial Days, so we are going to read this together. My kids really enjoy these books, Childhood of Famous Americans series. So we are going to read this as our group read aloud. This is another one that a lot of people said this was actually on our list of either one that Liam was supposed to read for independent reading or read alouds like later in the year, but I decided to go ahead and do it now. It is Justin Morgan Had a Horse, so we're gonna plan on doing that. Some fun ones I think Liam would enjoy: Rescue, Ranger in Time, Rescue on the Oregon Trail. I've heard these books are really good. It's by the same author that did the I Survived series, and he likes those. So these are just a couple that have been sitting on my shelf that I'm excited to be able to use now in place of some of the other suggestions. He's also really excited to read the Scripture Sleuth, so I think we're gonna get to that in the next month or two. Liam also picked a couple of read alouds that he wants to do next. One of them was The Cricket in Times Square and The Incredible Journey. I kind of went on to Ambleside online and looked at their free reading. So I think we're swapping more from independent reading, assigned reading, to more of like free reading, like here's a list of books, which would you like to read? Because I feel like half the battle with him is finding books that he enjoys and actually wants to sit and read every day. It's also been nice to kind of be on our own on Fridays. We're used to having kind of like a fun school Friday, and it was kind of difficult to work that in with this schedule, but I think the way that we have it right now is going okay. And Fridays are more kind of an exploration day for us. So we had a bunch of mushrooms in our yard recently, and so we got out our nature anatomy book and we did some nature journaling and things like that. And so this is the kind of flexibility and things that I enjoy about homeschooling. And so I think that it's been really good that we can take a program like Heart of Dakota that has so much deepness and richness and good resources, and combine it and make it a little bit more flexible. So this is probably something I would have been scared to do several years ago when I first started homeschooling, but now I have to make it work for us. I can't be going out and buying a whole new curriculum for this year. I know in a few months I'm not going to be able to pull a bunch of different resources and things like that. So it'll be nice to kind of have something to fall back on during that postpartum period. But also I can kind of add or take away things that work and don't work for us. So that is my update on Heart of Dakota, Bigger Hearts for His Glory, the first 6 weeks. Let me know down in the comments if you have tried Heart of Dakota, if it worked for you, if it didn't work for you, how your first few weeks of school are. I know a lot of people started at the beginning of August, but I just needed to get the school year started a little bit earlier this year since we are going to be taking so much time off this winter. But as always, I so love reading your guys' comments down below, and if you have not yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and come back next week where I talk about my 1st grader and 5th graders independent subjects and give an update on those. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.